This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com.
Welcome to the Digital Desperados podcast featuring dark tales from the web. Patrick McMurphy here once again to tell us our dark tales. And I'm Jim Brangenberg, and I'll serve as your story guide and keep Patrick under control. This podcast brought to you by SaferNet and their VPN product. You know, any more going online can be scary. Every time you click on a link, you never know where you're going to go. Join the mission to stay secure online with SaferNet VPN. Perfect for small and medium-sized businesses, and of course, at home too. SaferNet's cybersecurity app provides VPN, which keeps people from seeing where you're going and where you're at. It provides internet controls, virus protection, so much more. Keep your life in harmony with 84 website filters, keeping distractions out of the way. Sign up at safernet.com. You won't regret it. It's awesome. Safernet.com. All right, Patrick McMurphy, tell us, which dark tale are you telling us today?
Well, today, Jim, I want to talk about Gary Alford. He's the IRS investigator who unmasked the Silk Road kingpin. And so this is going to be a little bit different because we normally talk about criminals here, but Gary is not a criminal. Gary's on the opposite side of criminality. But first, I want to talk about Silk Road and someone called Ross Ulbricht. We actually did cover him probably about 10 episodes ago. However, he's come back up in the news cycle because I funnily said in that episode that I really hope that he gets released at some point, and then President Trump actually just pardoned him about a month ago. So I want to kind of return to his story a small bit and about the guy who caught him, basically.
Okay.
But just to fully explain, if someone hasn't listened to the episode, Silk Road was basically a marketplace online. However, they sold everything. I'm talking anything from drugs to weapons to all kinds of things. And Ross, the guy who founded it, was a very hardcore libertarian who really wanted this free market. However, just it kind of came in hand with a lot of criminality. But Gary was born and raised in Brooklyn in New York in somewhere called the Marlborough Housing Projects. And so the Marlborough houses were a low income housing project. They were pretty notorious for crime and violence. And so he grows up in this environment and he sees the effects of crime and poverty. And, you know, a lot of people at that point, when they see that growing up, they might end up turning to crime. But Gary was different. That actually fueled Gary's kind of sense of justice and his passion for law enforcement. Gary is mixed race. He's half black, half Filipino. So he had this biracial childhood, and he kind of navigated different cultural identities. But that kind of helped him think differently, and that skill would really benefit him later on in life. His parents were good people. His father was a math teacher, and he really emphasized things like logic and education. So he gave Gary this very analytical mindset. You know, things that math and logic, they're objective, they're powerful tools. And that was really that was going to change his whole life and the way he thought. So he attended somewhere called Baruch College. He studied accounting, which led him to a career in the IRS. For him, so accounting wasn't just about numbers, it was about patterns, which is, I think, a very powerful thought to have, and I think it's a very wise thought. But he was actually very heavily inspired by a guy called Frank J. Wilson, and that is the IRS agent who took down Al Capone, because Wilson had this understanding of financial investigations, kind of solving these major crimes and how logic can kind of build up on pieces of each other. And so this story with Capone kind of really resonated with him. I mean, Capone, look, we all know he's a gangster, but he got caught through tax evasion, not murder, which is just, it's an insane thing to think about. But he became a special agent in the IRS, and later he was assigned to a DEA task force in 2013. So there was a Silk Road investigation, but it was just stuck. It was going nowhere. There was a lot of people trying to investigate it. They knew that there was about $300,000 in daily transactions on this website, but it could not be solved. And the problem was, so Ross Ulbricht, the guy who found this, you know, we had his nickname as the Dread Pirate Roberts, which is from a movie. But the problem was that the Dread Pirate Robert covered his tracks very well. And law enforcement at the time were basically over-relying on tech-based investigative methods, where Ross could just cover all of his tracks against things like this.
What I love about the fact is that SaferNet helps cover our tracks as well, doesn't it, Patrick? I mean, right now I know that if I go into a hotel lobby and I'm connected up to their Wi-Fi, and if I've got SaferNet on my tablet or on my laptop, I don't have anything to worry about. That's why I love SaferNet. No matter where I go, I know they've got my back. I recommend you listening to this podcast, check out SaferNet. It is unbelievable. It is a powerful tool, and it doesn't slow your computer down. You don't even notice that it's there. SaferNet.com. SaferNet.com. All right, so the IRS guys, the DEA guys are trying to chase Ross Ulbricht. Gary's like, hey, you're trying all these fancy things, but let's just use logic and math.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what Gary's trying to go for here. But the thing is, he actually has a lot of friction with the FBI and Homeland Security. There's actually a lot of bureaucratic friction because he doesn't want to use these tech methods.
That'd be slow friction though, right? Because the bureaucrats move at such a slow pace. So that would be like the grinding of the continental drift kind of bureaucratic friction. Sorry.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you think about it, it's IRS, FBI, Homeland Security, I don't think they like each other. They do not really all get on very well, I
don't think so.
No, and so Gary's taking this old school approach. He's using Google and kind of these date-based searches rather than these high-tech forensic tools, excuse me. So in case of instead of just treating it like this high-tech surveillance, he actually just treats the whole thing like a puzzle, because it goes back to his childhood, because he was into solving puzzles and logic and things like that. And so because he's doing all this sleuthing and, he's trying to go back to the start, he finds an old forum post from 2011 from a user named Altoid. And Altoid is promoting Silk Road before it launched, which is very important because no one had found this at that point. No one knew that there was someone actually talking about Silk Road before it was even launched. And because the post predated the launch of Silk Road, that meant that Altoid had to have inside knowledge. So it was actually a complete rookie mistake, because Altoid was Ross Ulbricht. It was a complete rookie mistake. He leaves this tiny, small digital footprint that unraveled absolutely everything, because Altoid's email address listed on the form was rossulbricht@gmail.com.
Wow.
Which is, you think about this Dread Pirate Robert, very smart guy, always covers his tracks, and just had forgotten, a few years ago. And, if you look back on the forum users' posts, he's always talking about Austrian economics, libertarianism. He has all the philosophy that Ross does. So it's a smoking gun. He's got then. But again, look, the FBI and DEA missed this entirely, because they were overlooking how just very basic detective work can actually be very successful. Because again, they were just looking for the high tech stuff. They didn't do the bread and butter detective stuff. So Gary was reported his findings, but he was actually initially ignored because they really just didn't like this guy at all. They overlooked the lead initially, and so they were kind of dismissing his work slightly.
Wow. What I love is that, sometimes the simplest of things are what makes sense. And that's what's great about SaferNet. It's a simple process. Install it on your computer. Really just forget about it, because it's doing all that work behind the scenes. Antivirus, website filters, a VPN, all that stuff is there for you. The simplest things in life are the greatest things. Get SaferNet on your computer now, then you don't have to worry. SaferNet.com. Check it out online, please. For me, for Patrick, SaferNet.com. All right. So they ignored him. They dismissed his work. He's getting frustrated, and so he goes in and shoots up everybody at the IRS.
Something like that. No, but months later, actually, a colleague in the IRS had found another Homeland Security case. There was fake IDs that had been seized at the Canadian border addressed to Ross Ulbricht. And so when they looked into this, they found Ross's IP address was, of course, linked to Dread Pirate Roberts, confirming that he was connected to the Silk Road. And so October 2nd, 2013, and we did cover this part in a previous episode, but Ross is arrested in San Francisco library. He's actually on the laptop with Silk Road open. It was, you couldn't be caught more red-handed than how Ross was. It was pretty bad. Now, Gary wasn't actually present due to budget restrictions, but after the arrest, the FBI sent him an email saying, "Congrats, Gary, you were right," which is such a kick in the stomach, like, come on, dude, like, why didn't you just listen to this man months ago? It would have been over. And so he was pivotal, but his contributions were kind of just omitted from a lot of the trial documents. He did receive a plaque from his supervisors in the IRS, quoting Sherlock Holmes, saying, "The world is full of obvious things, but nobody by chance ever observes." Which
so true.
I think it's such a great quote, because I'm someone who observes a lot, and I notice a lot of people just do not ever observe anything. So I really am a big fan of that quote. But yeah, now, so Gary is an IRS cybercrime coordinator. He focuses on cryptocurrency tax enforcement. He kind of warns investors about, Bitcoin, things like the gains from that are taxable, emphasizing that the IRS will tax you on your cryptocurrency if you go ahead and sell. But he always, he's always doing talks with crypto traders. He's basically just gone into this whole cryptocurrency tax thing. But he's just been this underdog investigator. He overcame this bureaucratic hurdles and FBI resistance, honestly, because it was kind of resistance to crack this whole case. He had this follow the money approach. He's famous yet overlooked. I mean, not a lot of people talk about Gary Alford, but I mean, he was really quite a smart man, and he did some pretty good things. So, but yeah, that's our Gary Alford.
So he's still alive, well, today, still fighting cybercrime fighter Gary Alford. I mean, what's fascinating, though, is that he had found the answer, a simple thing, a guy's email address. That's just unbelievable. And that our good dread pirate Roberts actually had an email address, Ross Ulbricht @gmail.com. Seems kind of funny.
Incredibly.
Because he could have had anything else. He could have had
anything.
Pirate Roberts @gmail.com.
Anything. Literally anything else.
So your reason for bringing this to us is because this became current events. I mean, literally.
Ross Ulbricht Ross is actually Ross is out of prison, and to kind of like I personally am actually quite a big fan of Ross. And I think he kind of messed up a lot, but his whole idea about having this libertarian market is something that appeals to me a lot. And he was sentenced to life in prison, which I thought was way too severe for basically just founding a website. But yeah, he is out of prison now. I don't know if him and Gary met again. I would love if they did. That would make an interesting story.
You'll have to keep track of the web to see if that happens.
Yeah, I think so. But I think Ross is now quite active on Twitter, and I know he's talking about setting up a more like legally defined market. So yeah, he's not trying to get back into prison, but I think he still sticks with the same ideals. But I thought it was kind of timely to bring up, just because it was incredible, because we had done the episode and then about Ross, and then about a month later he gets out of prison, and I was like, man, my timing is so bad.
No, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because literally, we're just covering the stories of cyber criminals, and all of a sudden one of them, a famous one, gets out. And the news did give him a little, it did describe the Silk Road a little bit on the news. I listened to it, but they didn't really give it to the detail that we did, of course, here on the Digital Desperados podcast. Patrick McMurphy, thank you so much for bringing us this story. Kind of the positive side of things, a little bit different for us, but we're grateful for your efforts. You heard it here. The internet and everything digital can have a dark side with many dark players. It's why you need SaferNet by your side. VPN, antivirus, website filters, so much more. We want to thank SaferNet for supporting our efforts to bring these stories to your ears and giving them the exposure they need. Please, for your own security and the security of those you love and those you work with, check out safernet.com and get secured today. Until the next time, click only on the attachments you trust from those you trust and delete the rest, or you may become the next victim of a digital desperado.
This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com. Calling all entrepreneurs and parents, protecting those we love on the internet is important. Safeguard your ventures and loved ones with SaferNet VPN. Our cybersecurity app keeps you safe on any device. Shield your business from cyber threats while ensuring a family-friendly online environment. Simplify your digital life with SaferNet VPN today. Get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com.